What's up, guys, and welcome to this that is the very first episode of a channel whose main purpose is to give you quality photo tutorials without you having to know anything at all. And of course, unlike other big brand tutorials, I don't expect you to have all of the gear either. This is a Reeves Bros tutorial. Most people think when they hear the word DSLR is some big camera and some big brand guy who has invested both time and money into his photography. Stop thinking that. My goal for you by the end of this video is your better understanding of the art of photography. Now, jumping right in, I want to give you a little tidbit. You can take great photos today. The only difference between you, me, that guy over there, and some big brand photographer who has his name out there is a little something called gear. You can start taking stunning photos today with nothing more than a phone, a point-and-shoot camera, and of course, a DSLR. So if you want to take your photos from this to this, I have two words in mind for you: manual mode. So there are three basic things that you are in control of when in manual mode. Those three basic things are shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. At first, when opening up the camera and then scrolling into manual mode, it may seem kind of overwhelming to have so much control and not exactly understand what it is that you're controlling. In any DSLR, there's something called the mirror. And what this mirror does is it actually swings back and forth, and then there's a shutter behind that mirror that will open and close at varying speeds. And that controls the amount of light coming into your picture. Now, another way that you can control the amount of light coming into your picture is something called aperture. Any lens is going to have an aperture ring, whether it's a simple 50mm lens or a 135mm lens. What the aperture does is it controls your depth of field. So what you're going to do to achieve that very blurry background is you're going to open up your aperture as wide as it can go. And usually that's around 2.8, 1.4, even 3.6 will work sometimes. And that creates a kind of enjoyable, very bright, cheery, blurred picture that is aesthetically pleasing as well. Now, on the lower end of the spectrum, you have probably f11, f22, and those create very dark pictures. What having a tight aperture will also do is, on top of the fact that it will darken your image, it will also make your image very crisp throughout. So now let's get into what ISO is. So picture you've got your beating heart of the camera. Any camera has a sensor. A sensor is what sees everything. Think sensor, C. They both start with S, easy to remember. Your sensor can have different power levels, and these different power levels create different levels of noise. Okay, noise picture. I thought noise was only in film or in video. You're wrong. This is a different type of noise. This type of noise basically is grain, and it's very unappealing. Okay, so take a look at this image. Everything in the foreground is in focus. Everything in the background is blurred out. The image is not overexposed or underexposed. There's no motion blur, but there just seems to be something wrong with the image. If you look in the lower left and right corners, you'll see something called noise. And what noise does is it creates a grain on the image, and it's very unappealing to the viewer. So what we do to combat this noise is we lower our ISO levels. I can't speak today. I can't. To probably around 100 or 200, and your sensor will still be fine.